Hi, I'm David Maynor. Thank you for joining me today on our Microsoft Patch It triage uh, issue. My faithful life mate Ryan will not be joining us today. He is currently on assignment in Western United States, checking to see if bat guano can indeed make a computer hack more efficiently. Can't wait to see his report on that. But today is a special day. It's Microsoft Patch Tuesday. This is a long-standing tradition in the information security industry, uh, where Microsoft mostly releases all their security patches at one point, unless there's an emergency or an out-of-band patch. So on days like this, on these Tuesdays, a lot of companies spend a lot of time going through the different patches, trying to figure out what's important, what's not, uh, and basically just figuring out a game plan. Because while most consumers can just install patches as often as they want, in corporate environments, you kind of have to test them first and figure out if they're going to break anything, any unintended consequences. So, for that reason, people will have to go through the patches and determine what needs to be prioritized for patch testing and what doesn't. And if there's a vulnerability and the patch isn't working, you're going to need to create what's called a compensating control or some other method to mitigate that vulnerability rather than just using a patch. So, uh, I hope you've enjoyed my lab coat because the rest of this will be on a screen share. I'm sharing my screen right now. If anybody has comments on how awesome I look in my lab coat, please leave them below. So the first thing we do, obviously, is find the Microsoft update page. We're going to take a look at the Microsoft Security Response Center, Security Update Guide under Customer Guidance. All right. So sometimes, even though the date is always the same as the second Tuesday of every month, and the release time is 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Sometimes it may take a few minutes, and people will often have to click refresh, because we can see that this date range includes today, December 13th. The patches have already been dropped. So we can go ahead and start here. All right, so there's no hard and fast policy or way of doing this. What I'm going to do is share with you what I've developed over. Let me see. I've been dealing with Microsoft patches in this format since 2004. So I'm old. I'm not going to do the math. But this is the Microsoft, the patches released today, right? Going from left to right, the columns are release date, product, platform. I'll go over what these mean later as we look at different things. Impact, max severity, article about the vulnerability, where you can download the security update and additional details, which often, in most cases, will include the common vulnerability exposure number or the CVE number. All right. So, like I said, there's no hard and fast way. What I like to start by doing is sorting by impact and then just kind of scrolling. Lots of denial of service. Denial of service isn't going to they are important, but they're not the most important thing. We start hitting some elevation of privileges here. Those are important, but not the most important. Lots of elevation of privileges. Lots of elevation of privileges. Wow. I hit a load more screen. So apparently there's 1,166 different different releases. Now that doesn't mean there's 1,166 bugs. Most of these will be just like a single bug that are being released on like different platforms. For instance, like these two, CVE 2022-44683. As you can see, 44683. There's multiple there's multiple instances reported for it, and you can see there are 4 different operating systems. So there's not 1,166 vulnerabilities released today, just individual patches that cover a wide range of operating systems and applications. All right, we got information disclosures, which by themselves generally aren't that big a deal, but if you are building an exploit chain and you have an exploit that needs to know like the internal state of a process or whatnot, those information disclosures can come in pretty handy. All right, here we go. Remote code execution, and there's 2. Well, they're the same one, but they're marked as important severity, whereas most other RCEs or remote code execution will be marked as critical. RCEs are generally the holy grail for hackers. This basically means that you've gotten something to run code that shouldn't be running the code. You can do all kinds of bad things with it. So that's a quick overview, and there's a lot of different variety here. So with a lot of variety, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Sorry, I'm not used to using a Windows laptop because I'm an adult. I didn't copy cleanly. Let me just go ahead and download it as an XLS. I should have just done this from the beginning, but normally I'm doing this on Linux machines and things. My workflow is a little different. All right. Go all the way down to the bottom to the criticals. And what we're going to do now, hyperlinks can be, oh, that's funny. Looking at Microsoft's patch update document, we get errors, security errors. All right, so let me see if I have Kali on this. I do not. And I can't just SSH somewhere. So I'll install it real quick while I talk about other stuff. Great. All right, we're not going to be able to do that, so we are going to use a tool called CyberChef, written and distributed by the GCHQ, and the GCHQ is the the UK version of the NSA. All right, what I'm going to do is filter out everything that's not a CVE number. If you've never used CyberChef, I highly recommend in situations like this. It's always great. All right. I'm going to pull over unique by line feed. So we went from 1,377 different CVEs from the spreadsheet to 49. So for later on, when I'm making notes and whatnot about these, it's good to have a list of the unique CVEs and whatnot that we're working with. All right, so we've got our unique list now. All right, let's take a look at the product and the platform for critical RCEs. You know, actually, I want to look at the RCE. Oh, so the remote code execution that is important looks like it's from Visual Studio. So I'm guessing it's going to be remote code execution, but in a very limited set of situations. Fix the bug in the allocator. Yeah, this is not. So this isn't something that would excite most people because these are weird memory leaks, different platforms. They're there, and there's the actual vuln. So this is a image vulnerability or image format vulnerability. It's in .NET. For XPS files. And if you're not aware, let me pull it up real quick. XML paper specification is part of a open It's part of an open XML specification. There's a lot of things that they could be used for, particularly if a malicious actor, I'm guessing here, but what I'm seeing is if a malicious actor were to control something like a GitHub repo and make somebody using Visual Code, like clone that repo, they might be able to trigger this this vulnerability. All right, we're going to mark this one as interesting. But like I said, that is interesting to me. Because in addition to, I mean, in addition to detection content and stopping bad guys, I do a lot of red team stuff. So this seems like something that would be worth developing for a custom red team exercise. All right. So now, if you notice, like I said, I took the unique CVEs previously and put them in a doc into themselves. Uh, I have the CVEs on the left. The middle column is generally if I find it interesting, or like short one word notes for myself. And the third column is generally uh, more notes. Like for the second column, I really want, is this interesting or is this not? For the third column, I want, all right, this was interesting because it was an XPS file execution, RCE. Generally in the D column, I will also put links to things like the advisory, or if we find out anything else about the bug. One of the things that's great to look for is who reported the bug or how was a bug found, and that can also help you, later on if you decide to do more depth. All right, so this one was discovered by two gentlemen. It looks like they were both credited from Netitude and NetSpy. Nick Landers with NetSpy, and I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm so sorry. Elf, you know what? I'm not even going to try. Mr. Panos with Netitude. A man's just got to know his limitations, and I'm just not very good at pronouncing some things. So I'll add that in here as well. Now, a lot of these vulns, or not a lot, but some of them I'll come across, and they won't sound interesting, but based on who reported it, I'll say, I'm going to look more into that. There's, some specific high profile groups or people like Orange Sai. There's a guy named Orange Sai. If he reports anything, I'm going to spend time to look at it. In fact, we can go under acknowledgments and take a look. Okay, so Cyber Kunlun, always interesting to look at. They are big. They're like the Beatles in China for exploit developers. The Trend Zero Day Initiative, the ZDI, has been around for a long time. They came from a company called Tipping Point, and it started with, it was one of the first bug bounty programs. Ooh, anonymous. Outlook Android Elevation. I'm going to 24480. some people think that this is just way too much. Okay, so that's not going to be a critical. Phi Akamai generally, because of the scale that Akamai operates at, any vulnerabilities reported by Akamai is going to be interesting. In this particular case is going to be a kernel denial of service. Doesn't look like it's important, but I think it's important, so I'm going to add it to my list. Like I said, Akamai gets to see vulnerabilities at scale that other, most companies don't. So when they take time to report things, it's generally worth looking at because it will be a interesting, but like it might not be like remotely, it might not be like the remote 0 day to end everything, but it will be something interesting that you'll walk away with. Okay, so I am doing this live, obviously. So I am not the best typer normally. So live, you can imagine, not the best. Now, I've done this triage for a lot of different organizations. The what I'm doing primarily now is looking for bugs that would be of interest to that would be of interest to the Cybrary Threat Intelligence Group that we might be able to use in labs or other training initiatives. And so I'm looking for different things than, all right, here's another group, Windows, a Windows kernel elevation per vulnerability from Google Project Zero. Once again, if you don't know who they are, Google Project Zero is Google's bug hunting, like external bug hunting team. They look for vulnerabilities in other people's products, and they have some of the most talented people doing this work. Period. So anything they do, worth looking at. As you can see already, we have two vulns that weren't critical, but are worthy of looking at. Now, Microsoft will patch individual vulnerabilities and release on them. What often is happening now in the what's happening now in the wild is an attacker might need multiple exploits chained together to be able to take control of something. These are called generally exploit chains. So if you look at like just a list of the vulnerabilities themselves from Microsoft, some of them might not look that important. And that's because you're looking at them individually. If you look at them, if you spend the time to break them down and understand how they could be part of a larger exploit chain, some of the mediums or lows suddenly become very important, which is why you can't just skip over everything and get to the just criticals. All right. Who else we got? More Print Spooler. I don't know this group, but they reported Print Spooler and Windows graphic component privesks, vulns. They're gonna go on the list 44,680. All right, they're not currently on the list. Windows graphic component privdesk. So to me, that's saying that somewhere something's rendering an image, and because of that, somebody's getting access that they're not supposed to. That is interesting. I don't know this group, but I will also research them, see what other things they've reported on and whatnot. If you're thinking this seems slow and boring, it's not fast and crazy, that's for sure. 7.9 and 7.8. If you follow Microsoft vulnerabilities a lot, you'll know over the last maybe 2 years, they've had a lot of printing problems. Looks like their woes are just continuing. All right, there we go. Kunlun Lab. Kunlun is different than Cyber Kunlun, but also, oh, wait. Oh, wait. Something. So we're saving the best for the end. I would normally say that the Kunlun Lab, the Windows Projected File System Privask is interesting. 677. But we're, you know what? Let me go ahead and document that just because I want later on when I'm actually working these, I don't have the full view. I'll go nuts. 44677. I'm gonna give this one a mildly interesting. I know this guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know other bugs that he had reported. All right, so the first one that I'm really super excited about, aside from the Visual Studio one that I think I could use for a good targeted phishing lure, is Windows Secure Socket Tunnel Protocol Remote Code Execution from Cybrary, specifically Yuki Chan. Not too long ago, I believe either in November or October. Well, it's happened a couple times this year. Uh, Microsoft's PPTP, or point-to-point tunneling protocol, has had vulns in it, and we've done CTIG's done previous research on this. The reason that Yuki Chan's secure tunneling protocol knocked a pause into me is you can often tell like what a group or individual kind of like is focusing on, and you can kind of track their research over time. So I'm not sure I'm trying to remember who reported the PPTP vulns, but they're another like secure tunneling protocol vulnerability. There was a remote code execution in very similar to this. So I've already got a lot of tooling that I will be able to reuse in recreating these vulnerabilities. 44676. I will. This is going to bother me until the end of time. But coming from Mr. Yuki Chan on Labs. So, regardless of like the mindset I'm using now, like looking for bugs that would be good for like our Cybrary labs and learning opportunities and whatnot. This is one of those vulnerabilities that would be of interest to most corporations, uh, especially depending on how the implementation of, uh, depending on the details of the vulnerability, which we'll go into, which I'll get into. I'll do a deep dive later. Now, in my own personal history, starting back in 2004, I got very interested in wireless drivers. I found a bunch of bugs in Windows and Apple Wi-Fi device drivers and also Bluetooth device drivers. So these two Bluetooth device driver vulns, 44674 and 44675, are of particular interest to me because they could, like if they're being used in a penetration test or whatnot, we could do something which is we refer to as close access operations, which means like, hey, I could be in the same room with you, like in a coffee shop or an Uber share or something, and you not know I'm hacking you. Looking like one's an elevation of privilege, one's a disclosure. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is what I was referring to earlier, where information disclosure isn't generally the sexiest thing, but sometimes you need an information disclosure to make another type of exploit work. And since the same person reported and were assigned like consecutive CVE numbers, they more than likely came in the same report. This is a person who found an information disclosure vulnerability that then made an escalation of privilege vulnerability possible. And I do know who this person is as well. They are known for mobile device research. What was that? Four or five is the elevation of privilege, and 474 is the info disclosure. All right. And we're not going to have time to cover all the ones that I find interesting, but I'm going to start talking through them instead of just doing the spreadsheet. But no, like my process is, the spreadsheet. Bugs found by MSRC are generally also very interesting. That means they found it internally. If you reverse engineer and understand like that bug, that can give you some insight, hopefully, into tools, techniques, and procedures that Microsoft is using to find bugs in its own code base. I always find that interesting. These two remote code, Windows Media remote code execution bugs from Star Labs. Star Labs is another well-known vuln research firm. They're saying the attack vector is local with a pretty low CVSS. However, getting a Windows media player to execute arbitrary code can be useful in so many ways. That would be worth taking a look at, especially since there's two of them. Windows Contacts remote code execution. Most people listening to this won't remember the great war of contact formats of the mid 2000s, but there were all these different contact formats, and it would have hyperlinks or base64 encoded data in them, and they were all bad and caused a bunch of bugs. So this is giving me a bit of nostalgia. Once again, not a very high CVSS score, and it also says local, but I'm guessing this means that there has to be, user interaction is required. So, like, I can't just send you a contact and your machine will just take it and get exploited. I've got to social engineer you into, hey, you asked for this person's contact information from this event we were at. Here's their contact information, and you attach a malformed Windows contact file in hopes to get somebody to open it and get compromised. That's what I'm thinking this is. That would also be great for a very specific or very targeted red team test. I got to know what this Windows Smart Screen security feature bypass is. It says it's a network, but I'm going to add this to my list for later on. All right, so we've got Windows error reporting elevation. I would flag this for further research. I don't know these fellas or these individuals, but they will go on my list of people to research. These guys are back from earlier with more Windows graphic component disclosure, info disclosure. Windows Hyper-V elevation Privesc. I don't know him, but I feel like I should. Oh yeah, actually his name was familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. He's participated in a hacking contest called Pwn to Own before, and has some real interesting, like deeply technical vuln research information. So the fact he reported a hypervisor escape is enough to make me want to look into that bug more. Of all these bugs that we've discussed, and everybody will have their own opinion on this. Of all these, I think that the Windows Hyper-V elevation of priv would be the one that I would look at the most in a corporate environment, aside from the secure tunneling protocol. Because if this is what I think it is, this means that you might be able to elevate your privileges on a Windows machine with Hyper-V installed. Now, it doesn't say that it's an escape. If it were an escape from Hyper-V, this would be hands down the most interesting vuln of the batch. But they do say an attacker that fully exploits this could gain system privileges. So on machines with Hacker V, somebody could go from a user to system privileges. That would be real interesting as part of, if you were to think about some of the other vulns that we've mentioned, especially like the Bluetooth vulns. If you put them in a chain like the Bluetooth info disclosure, then Privesk, and now you're on a machine that has Hyper-V running, and then you use a Hyper-V privilege escalation exploit to get to system. Like that would be I'm guessing, but that would be a possible exploit chain to take you from no access to system in 4 exploits. And that's how people build exploit chains. So there's a lot on my list that I'm going to drill down. And like I said, the primary ones that I'm looking for here I'm not looking for like a giant single one that's like a giant single vuln that's going to knock everything out. I'm going to look for smaller vulns that can be combined into exploit chains that bad guys that are reading this might not be aware of, or would be easy to miss. I'll go ahead and kill this. Doing a real last pass. So depending on the number of vulns, and like I didn't get very I didn't get to everything I would like to, but I would say this would generally take a good solid hour and a half of just research work and documentation, and that is before I start. The next step after this would be prepping reverse engineering environments and grabbing both pre and post, like unpatched versions of the binaries and patched versions of binaries, so I can do a binary diff and find the bugs easier, and then basically write a POC to prove the exploit works, all the way up to weaponizing it so we could use it in a red team test or like a lab environment. That's what's next for me, at least today. If you have any questions on decisions I've made, now I want to point out again, nothing's hard and fast. The things that caught my eye and I zeroed in on are things that I've learned over time are interesting, or they're from people that I know report interesting things, or they're in interesting parts of an operating system or an application. That's kind of hard to teach, other than saying you just kind of have to get a feel for it by doing triages, every month. So we're approaching the top of the hour. Are there any questions from the audience about anything I've done? Why? How? Anybody want to challenge me and tell me I'm wrong and tell me why I'm wrong? By all means, please. If not, I will say this. I told you what my next steps are. And you can expect more information being published by Cybrary Threat Intelligence Team, or CTIG, in the coming days and weeks on these vulnerabilities. Well, this month's going to be kind of weird because Christmas. If something here ends up being like wildly exploited in the wild or something like that, we'll prioritize that. But look for information in the future on the vulns that I've highlighted here from CTIG. With that, I'd like to remind you again, I'm David Maynor. I've really enjoyed walking you through this triage. Check back in January, the second Tuesday of January at 1 p.m. for the January triage. Microsoft is easy to do because they always release they release at the same time. We want to be able to in the future do triages for things like Apple as well, but they don't give you a lot of warning when patches get released. So that would be more of an ad hoc thing, but that's one of our goals. Also, I can't wait to share a lot of the cool stuff that we're doing next year in CTIG with you. But as I said, tune in the second Tuesday of January for the next Patch Tuesday triage. I'm David Maynor for the Cybrary Threat Intelligence Team. Thank you very much.